Hello, curious minds, and welcome to this intellectual journey. Today, we're going to dismantle one of the most deeply ingrained ideas in our education, one you probably accepted without question back in school. What if I told you that the definition of literature you were taught, the one about great authors and dusty old novels, is only half the truth? Worse yet, what if it's actually a way to limit your understanding of the world? Before we dive in, I wanted to tell you a little about the visuals you're seeing. To bring this narrative to life, I've used artificial intelligence tools. Think of them as a canvas, a way to illustrate the ideas and mood. They won't always be an exact representation, but rather a visual accompaniment to help your imagination soar with me. I truly hope you enjoy it. When we think of literature, the mental image is almost always the same: a book, a physical object. We've been taught to revere the canon, a list of works and authors, almost all men, almost all European, who supposedly define the pinnacle of human expression. But that's just a tiny fraction of a much larger and more fascinating story. To find the true essence of literature, we must travel much further back in time, before the invention of the printing press, even before writing itself. The first literature wasn't read, it was heard. These were stories told around the fire, epic poems memorized and passed down from generation to generation. Think of the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest works we know. It wasn't born as a text, but as a chant, an oral narrative that contained the cosmology, fears, and hopes of an entire civilization. Its power wasn't in the paper, but in the vibration of the human voice and collective memory. The same goes for Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. For centuries, these monumental stories weren't quietly read by individuals. They were public spectacles recited by Aedos, the bards of ancient Greece, who kept their people's culture and identity alive through rhythm and the spoken word. So if literature can exist without books, what is it really? This is where things get interesting. I propose a new definition. Literature isn't an object, it's a technology. A social technology designed to package and transmit complex information across time and space. And that information isn't just cold, hard data. It's the densest, most crucial information for our survival as a species: emotional and cultural data. We're talking about wisdom, ethics, identity, fear, love, and hope. All of that gets compressed into a good story, a poem, or a song. This technology doesn't always use the alphabet. In the Inca Empire, for example, there was no writing as we know it. Instead, they used the quipu, a system of knotted cords. For a long time, these were thought to be simple accounting records, mere tallies of llamas or corn. However, recent research suggests something astonishing. Quipus might be a form of three-dimensional writing, a code that narrates stories, myths, and genealogies. Each knot, each color, each twist of the cord could be a word or an idea. That, without a doubt, is literature. Let's also consider Mesoamerican codices. These aren't books in the modern sense, but folded canvases that combine images and glyphs. They narrate stories of gods, kings, and the creation of the universe. They're not read linearly, they're interpreted visually. They offer a literary experience that fuses art and text in a way we've largely forgotten. Even in cultures that did develop writing, how we use it radically changes our perception. In many East Asian cultures, calligraphy isn't just a way to write, it's an art form in itself. The brushstroke, its strength and fluidity, adds a layer of emotion and meaning to the text that printed typography simply cannot replicate. The Japanese haiku, for instance, isn't just a three-line poem. It's a verbal photograph, a capsule of a precise moment. Its power lies in the economy of language and the white space it leaves for the reader's mind to complete the image. It's a literature of suggestion, not explicit description. Now, if literature is this technology for transmitting culture, has its evolution stopped? Of course not. It has simply changed format, adapting to new media. The traditional canon is just a snapshot of a constantly moving process. Think of song lyrics. When Bob Dylan won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 2016, many were scandalized. How could a musician receive the highest literary honor? The answer is simple. The Academy finally recognized that sung poetry is one of the oldest and most powerful forms of literature. The lyrics of artists like Kendrick Lamar or Resident are social chronicles, psychological explorations, and complex narratives that define our generation. They use rhythm, rhyme, and flow as literary tools to convey messages with an immediacy that the printed page often cannot match. And here we arrive at even more controversial territory for purists: video games. Games like The Last of Us or Red Dead Redemption 2 present narratives of a depth and emotional complexity that rival the best novels. They don't just tell you a story, they make you live it. In these interactive worlds, the player isn't a passive spectator, they're a co-author of the story. Their decisions alter the course of the narrative, exploring themes like morality, sacrifice, and the human condition in a deeply personal way. This is a new chapter in the evolution of literary technology. Even the most ephemeral forms of digital communication can have a literary spark. A well-constructed Twitter thread narrating a real-time historical event, a Reddit post telling a heartbreaking personal story, or even a meme that encapsulates a complex social idea in a single image and phrase. I'm not saying a meme is equivalent to Don Quixote. What I am saying is that both use the tools of their time to fulfill the same fundamental function, packaging an idea or emotion into a memorable and transmissible format. It's the same technology with a different interface. So, the next time someone talks to you about literature, don't just think of a bookshelf. Think of your grandma telling family stories, the lyrics of your favorite song, the tattoo that narrates a life, the video game narrative that made you cry. Literature isn't a relic in a museum. It's a living, breathing, mutating organism. It's the software of the human soul, constantly updated by each of us. And that, I believe, is a far more exciting and powerful truth than what we were told in class. Literature allows us to live multiple lives. It transports us to ancient Uruk with Gilgamesh, lets us feel the cold Russian winter with Dostoevsky, and allows us to explore distant galaxies in science fiction. It's an empathy machine that connects us with minds that lived centuries ago or haven't even been born yet. This broad vision of literature is also an act of inclusion. It recognizes that stories woven into a Persian rug or legends painted on tree bark by Australian Aborigines are just as valid and profound as any written novel. They are libraries of knowledge that simply use a different language. When we limit literature to books, we're ignoring the genius and wisdom of countless cultures that chose other mediums to preserve their legacy. We are in effect silencing a huge part of the human conversation. It's a form of cultural colonialism that we must challenge. Therefore, the true study of literature shouldn't just be the analysis of text, but the study of systems for transmitting meaning. It's a discipline found at the crossroads of anthropology, technology, and art. It's the study of how we tell ourselves stories. Think about it for a moment. What's the story that defines your family? Is it found in a book? Or is it in the anecdotes repeated at every dinner, in recipes passed down through generations, or in an old worn photo album? All of that is the fabric of your own personal and family literature. Literature also has a political and resistance function. Slave narratives, protest songs, poems written in prison. These are acts of defiance that affirm the humanity of their authors against systems that try to deny it. They are proof that as long as there is a voice, there will be literature. By expanding our definition, we don't devalue great novels. On the contrary, we place them in their proper context as one incredibly powerful form, yes, but not the only one, within a vast and diverse ecosystem of human narrative. Shakespeare isn't any less brilliant for standing alongside a Yoruba storyteller. The future of literature will be even stranger and more wonderful. We're already seeing narratives generated by artificial intelligence, stories that adapt in real time to a reader's emotions via biosensors, and poems written in the genetic code of DNA. Technology continues to evolve, but the central function will remain unchanged. We will always need stories to make sense of chaos, to build communities, to explore the depths of our own consciousness, and to feel a little less alone in the universe. It's a fundamental human need. So the next time you finish a video game with a great story, or hear a song whose lyrics cut right through you, give yourself permission to call it literature, because it is. You're participating in our species' oldest and most vital tradition, storytelling. Literature isn't dead, nor is it confined to libraries. It's on the streets, on our phones, on stages, and in late-night conversations. It's everywhere, waiting to be discovered and recognized in all its forms. We just have to learn to look and listen in a different way. Even architecture can be a form of literature. A Gothic cathedral, with its stained glass windows and statues, is a book of stone narrating sacred history to a population that couldn't read. Every arch, every gargoyle is a word and a sentence of faith and power. It's a text that you inhabit, not just read. Similarly, the design of a Japanese Zen garden is a poem composed of rocks, sand, and emptiness. It doesn't tell a linear story, but evokes a mood, a meditation on nature and impermanence. It's a form of literature experienced with the body and spirit, not just the intellect. Cooking in many cultures is another form of narrative. A recipe passed down from grandmothers to granddaughters isn't just a list of ingredients. It's a text containing a family's history, migrations, times of abundance and scarcity. Every flavor tells a part of that story. When we limit literature to the written word, we're privileging only one sense, sight, and one mode of processing, the intellectual. But stories can be tasted, heard, felt, and inhabited. A broader view enriches us by opening all our senses to narrative. The problem with the traditional canon isn't just that it's exclusive, it's boring. It turns something vibrant and essential into an academic chore, a list of mandatory readings that often kills the love for stories instead of cultivating it. It strips literature of its magic and its power to connect. The true reader, the true lover of literature, isn't the one who has read all the classics. It's the curious person who seeks stories everywhere, who recognizes the narrative pattern in a joke, in a scientific theory, or in the way a friend recounts their day. It's an attitude towards the world. Think about science. Great scientific theories often have a powerful narrative structure. Darwin's theory of evolution, for example, is an epic of survival, struggle, and transformation spanning millions of years. It's a story that gives us a place in the cosmos. A study by Emory University showed that reading a novel improves brain connectivity. The reader's neurons mirror the actions and feelings of the characters. Literally, our brain simulates the experience of the story. Literature isn't just something we read, it's something that happens to us. This neurological simulation is the basis of empathy. By temporarily living another's life, whether a medieval king or an astronaut on Mars, we expand our understanding of the human experience. Stories are the antidote to prejudice and tribalism because they force us to walk in someone else's shoes. So why did the book-centric view become the dominant one? In part for technological and economic reasons. Gutenberg's printing press allowed for the mass reproduction of texts, turning them into commodities. What could be printed and sold became what was considered valuable. It was also a tool for empire and nation building. A national literary canon helped create a common identity and language, often erasing the diversity of oral traditions and local dialects. Literature became an instrument of power and cultural unification. Reclaiming a broader definition of literature is therefore a radical act. It's democratizing the art of storytelling and returning power to communities and individuals. It's affirming that your story, my story, our stories matter, no matter the format in which they're told. Even our dreams are a form of literature. Every night, our brain becomes a novelist, playwright, and filmmaker, creating complex narratives from the remnants of our daily lives. They are the stories we tell ourselves to process our emotions and fears. Body language, the way we move and present ourselves to the world, also tells a story. A person's posture can reveal confidence or insecurity. Their walk can speak of their past. We are, in essence, walking texts that others are constantly reading. Fashion and the clothes we choose are another form of literary expression. What we wear is a text that communicates our identity, our aspirations, our belonging to a cultural tribe. It's a silent narrative we project to the world every day, a story we choose to tell about who we are. Therefore, it's not about abandoning books. Books are a wonderful technology, one of the best we've ever invented. It's about expanding the shelf, making space for all the other ways humanity has chosen to tell its truths. It's about seeing the universe as an infinite library. This perspective frees us from the anxiety of not having read enough. It's not a competition. It's an invitation to pay attention to the stories that already surround us, in every conversation, every song, every building. It turns us all into critics and collectors of narratives. Literature is the source code of culture. By understanding its diverse forms, we can better understand how societies function, how myths are constructed, and how we can rewrite the narratives that limit us, both personally and collectively. The literary critic George Steiner said that when a language dies, a world dies with it. The same is true for a literary form. When we lose an oral tradition or the ability to interpret a visual language, an entire universe of knowledge and beauty vanishes forever. That's why preserving and studying these diverse forms of literature isn't just an academic exercise. It's an act of cultural conservation, as important as protecting an endangered species or a fragile ecosystem. It's protecting the biodiversity of human imagination. Human memory is in itself a work of literature. We don't recall the past like a video recording. We remember it as a story that we constantly edit, reorganize, and reinterpret to make sense of our present. We are the novelists of our own past. So instead of asking, is this literature? Let's start asking, what literary function does this serve? How does it package emotion? How does it transmit wisdom? How does it build a world? These are the questions that open the doors to a deeper, richer understanding of human creativity. This isn't just a theory. Neuroscientists like Uri Hasson have used brain scans to show that when one person tells a story and another listens, their brain activity patterns synchronize. Storytelling creates a fusion of minds. Literature is literally a form of telepathy. The pleasure we feel when we get lost in a good story is an evolutionary reward. Our ancestors, who paid attention to narratives about where to find food or how to avoid predators, were more likely to survive. The love for stories is etched into our DNA. Stories give us a framework for understanding the randomness of life. The human brain hates chaos, it constantly seeks patterns. Literature, in all its forms, imposes a narrative order, a beginning, a middle, and an end, on the messy events of existence. It gives us the illusion of meaning. Even the lies we tell ourselves, our justifications and rationalizations, are a form of personal literature. They are the fictions we create to live with our contradictions and failures. Self-awareness, then, is the act of becoming a good critic of your own internal fiction. Think about money. What is money but a story we've all agreed to believe? A banknote is just a piece of paper or polymer. Its value isn't intrinsic. Its power lies in the shared narrative of trust and credit we've assigned to it. The economy is one of humanity's most influential works of fiction. Laws and justice systems are also literary texts. The Declaration of Independence or a country's constitution are foundational narratives. They tell the story of who we are as a people and what ideals we believe in. They are the mythology that sustains our societies. The creation myths of all cultures are the first science fiction or fantasy novels. They are attempts to explain the origin of the universe and our place in it using the available narrative tools. Modern science continues this tradition, but with a different language, that of mathematics and observation. So, literature isn't a mere decoration of life, a pastime for idle people. It's the operating system of human reality. It's the invisible scaffolding upon which we build our identities, our cultures, our nations, and our very understanding of the universe. Gossip, for example, is the most basic and widespread form of oral literature. It's how we build and maintain our community's social map. Who's trustworthy, who's a traitor, who's climbing the hierarchy? These are short narratives that regulate social behavior. Psychological therapy is in many ways a literary process. The patient tells the story of their life, and the therapist helps them find the narrative threads, identify recurring characters, and most importantly, rewrite the chapters that cause them pain. It's a co-editing of one's personal autobiography. Personal branding in the digital age is an exercise in fiction writing. We curate our lives on social media, selecting the best photos, telling success stories, creating a persona, an idealized self for public consumption. We've all become novelists of our own brand. Even a dish in a high-end restaurant is a poem. The chef uses ingredients, textures, and colors to tell a story, perhaps of a region, a season, or a childhood memory. It's an ephemeral narrative that vanishes as it's consumed. Perfume is olfactory literature. A perfumer combines top, heart, and base notes to create a sensory journey that evolves over time. A scent can evoke memories, create atmospheres, and tell stories without a single word, directly to the emotional core of our brain. Viewing literature this way gives us an incredibly powerful tool. If everything is a narrative, then everything can be rewritten. Stories of hate can be replaced by stories of empathy. Narratives of despair can be challenged by narratives of hope. We aren't just consumers of the stories around us. We are also the authors. Every action we take, every word we speak, every choice we make is a sentence we add to humanity's great collective narrative. We have more power than we think. So the challenge I leave you with today is this: go out into the world and act as story detectives. Find literature in the most unexpected places. In the design of a chair, in a friend's joke, in the silence between two notes of a song, and then tell your own stories. Because in the end, what will remain of us, what will outlive us, won't be our possessions or our bank accounts. It will be the stories we tell, the ones we live, and the ones we inspire in others. That is our true heritage and our only form of immortality. Literature, in its broadest and truest sense, is simply the sound humanity makes as it tries to understand itself. It's the incessant murmur of 7 billion souls telling their version of the truth. And there's nothing more important or beautiful than that. Next time someone tells you they don't like reading, maybe it's not that they don't like stories, but that they haven't found the format that resonates with them. Perhaps their literature is in film, in podcasts, in oral history, or in digital worlds. There's a form of literature for everyone. Even silence can be literary. In a play, a well-placed pause can carry more weight than any dialogue. In a conversation, silence can communicate agreement, tension, or sadness. It's the white space that gives meaning to the text, the absence that defines the presence. This view empowers us as learners. Instead of feeling intimidated by a seemingly inaccessible canon, we can start by analyzing the stories we already love. What makes the narrative of your favorite movie work? What techniques does your favorite rapper use? It's the same toolkit applied differently. The word text comes from the Latin textus, meaning woven. Originally, it referred to something woven. This etymology reminds us that stories are threads with which we weave the tapestry of our reality. Each story is a thread, and together they create the fabric of culture. So literature isn't an isolated discipline for academics in ivory towers. It's the most fundamental and democratic human practice. It's every person's birthright to make sense of their experience and share it with the world. It's the infinite conversation of our species. In summary, literature isn't what's in the book. It's what the book, the song, or the story does inside you. It's the shift in your perception, the spark of empathy, The question that keeps resonating in your mind long after the story is over. It's a verb, not a noun. We've journeyed from our ancestors' campfires to digital worlds, discovering that the impulse to tell stories is a universal constant. Technology changes, formats evolve, but the heart of literature, our need to connect and make sense, remains the same. Thank you so much for joining me on this expedition beyond traditional canons and definitions. It's been a true pleasure exploring these ideas with all of you. I hope this journey has sparked a new flame of curiosity and given you a fresh perspective on the power of stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing so you don't miss our future explorations. And please share in the comments, what's the most powerful, non-traditional work of literature you've experienced?